recording set up here? All right. Hey, hello, everyone, and welcome. This is OneTake, a 15-minute interview series with insurance executives brought to you by InsurTech Denver. This is a unique series in that there are no edits and no do-overs. I'm Marc Wheeler, co-founder of InsurTech Denver, and with us today is Garrett Kurtt, founder and CEO of One-Click Code. Garrett, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Marc. Thanks for having me.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time. I know you have a busy schedule. We were just chatting earlier. They've put in a long day already. So we're excited to have you with us today. So let's go ahead and jump right in. And for those who are not familiar with One-Click Code, tell us about the company and where you're positioned in the insurance industry.
Sure. So One-Click Code is something that I've been thinking about and actually executed on starting about 4 years ago. It is a company that is designed to aggregate the building codes across the US, which no one has done yet, and be able to take that information and make it into actionable type data. So actionable data would be like, what kind of decisions can I make in the field in real life with this data that could impact materials being used in a project, the cost estimation as part of an insurance claim or a contractor using it. And so the company is really created around taking manual systems and outdated ways of gathering building codes and information to create roofing estimates that technically could be wasting massive amounts of time and money. So both sides. There's that cough. Can't be edited out. And then One-Click Code is automating that into a simple, easy to use report that can be digested by an API, website, or iOS or Android apps as well. And so where does that position us? I think that's the follow-up question, is like, where does that position us? And so we started off with contractors, and we've actually found ourselves having more and more insurance adjusters, both independent and staff adjusters, as well as their managers, quality assurance that come in behind on the claims process, specifically around property claims for hurricanes, hailstorms, windstorms, and things like that.
That's terrific. Well, thank you for that. Well, that's pretty fascinating. It's a busy time, I would guess, with what's happening in the building industry and the home industry right now.
Yeah, the pricing is, I mean, inflation is just an understatement when it comes to labor and materials increasing like basically every 3 months by 8%.
That's amazing. Well, I know I was reading recently that the cost of a new home, a stick home, has gone up about $36,000 just because of lumber. So it's crazy. It's just crazy. Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, tell us a little bit, how did you get into the insurance industry and why, the residential roofing segment of all things?
Sure. So, I guess what started off as, I guess it was about 13 years ago. I was in a situation where I was working for a very large company called Lafarge, and I was in the logistics, and my background's logistics. And then the 2008, all of a sudden, the loan crisis happened. And so I was no longer employed. I found myself trying to figure out the industry I was going to get into. And by no means did I ever think I was going to be getting into the insurance industry or contracting industry for that matter. But I loved working with my hands. I loved trying to figure out complex problems, especially if you could build it. So if you can visualize it and take it and put it into something physical, it was amazing. So how did I get to the insurance industry? 13 years ago, I decided to make a power washing company, which is by far not sexy at all, but it allowed me the means and the equipment to get into the flood restoration. So that was my first real intro into flood, was 2008. I would say there were some floods in Iowa, 2008 floods, as well as Hurricane Ike. And ultimately in Hurricane Ike, I got into more of like the roofing segment of it. And so that is how I got my start into the insurance realm around adjusters and claims and being a contractor, as well as trying to understand why and how to build these complex estimates for what seemingly should be a simple task.
Wow, that's great. It's funny. I think most people don't necessarily start out their careers in saying I'm going to be in insurance. and we find our way into it. My background was in consumer packaged goods of all things, and then got into lead generation, and then, the things that I'm doing today. So it's a roundabout way of getting there, but it's a great industry to be in nonetheless. Now, your business is heavily dependent upon third-party data. And we're seeing more and more of those relationships taking place. What insights or advice would you have for those needing to access and manage third-party data as part of their business?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that I would think we're unique in our situation, but I think others have tried to do this and have probably been successful in other industries. But at least for our purposes, to be able to obtain the building code data across the US, it hadn't been done to our knowledge or successfully been done on a national scale. And so what we found was very interesting. I think this has to do with access before we get into managing it, because we had to get it first. And so this building code information is not something that you go to websites and you can scrape. You can't use AI and all these fancy things that are coming out in terms of automation. It really comes down to being able to communicate effectively with the cities and counties. And there's, right now we're working with 27,000 of them to be able to understand their building codes, what codes they've adopted, and then all the nuances that aren't technically probably on their website. They might be hidden in some documents. And we try to get that and extract that data. And that would be our third-party data. So we're aggregating what would be third-party data into a source that we can quickly be able to display for any given address across the US. And I think that the caveat behind that is that not only are you trying to get the data out, but you're dealing with different levels of people with knowledge. And so if you call a city and county, you may get a lower level person that could have been there for 3 years. They may not understand what building codes are and what is required, because we're actually asking pretty detailed questions. And you can go all the way up to the building official, who should be the person of authority, but they may not even know the answers to that question. So it's not just gathering the data, it's also educating them on the data we're asking for, and how can they go find it for us. Because in the end, that data is what drives materials and labor associated with any construction project. And if we know that information, we can help automate the estimation side of it. So that's one of the things that we had to do. And in order to do that, though, we built an amazing process, both as much automation as we can, but we actually built out our own homegrown system to help manage all of that amount of data and collection and follow up and communication. So it's almost like its own little CRM platform. And so that's basically, and then also managing it. I don't know if you want to ask any questions around that before I move into managing it.
No, I do have a question with regard to how many data points are you collecting?
So I think we're at 160 data points right now that we're collecting, roughly. We don't display all that in our reports, but we have it in the background. We found that the industry really wants to know a national presence before you start doing the local and regional. So we really want to focus on our data being national before we actually release it. So we have quite a bit of data that's in the back that we just haven't released yet.
Right. And how about some insights on managing that data? I mean, that's a huge data set.
Yep.
Thousands, tens of thousands of data points.
Hundreds of, yeah.
Yeah. How is all that managed?
So we've actually grown from what we started before. We started off with Google Sheets, if you could imagine that. That was pretty complicated. But we've worked into using some database. We have a geo database. We have a DynamoDB. So we're getting the technology. But actually, what we're working on right now in terms of managing this data is we're going into a data lake. We're moving into a segment which we found to be the winner in our eyes, is the way to help us manage that data and really glean and insight and extract out of that data very easily. And so segment is something that we think is going to help us in our third-party management. Now, that's the actual data itself. Remember, we're actually going back to the cities and counties, and we're trying to figure these codes out on a regular basis, every 2 months, every 6 months, because the codes change throughout the country. They're not static. It's fluid. So we are actually managing it that way too. So we both manage getting the data and making sure it's fresh, as well as our new way of being able to manage the actual data in a data lake.
Oh, that's amazing. I can imagine, how the industry is always changing, particularly when you bring it down to a state or a county level. The challenges that are there. Well, let me ask you a couple other questions. As you As the founder, the visionary, for the business, how has your role changed over time as the business has evolved?
Well, I think initially I was like, I'm as a founder, and I had a couple other co-founders. We did it all. So anywhere from cleaning the kitchen to doing the dishes to all the way to working up legal contracts with the lawyers and doing financial analysis. I mean, we're doing everything. It's a lot of doing and being in the business. Now that we've been able to hire talent, we've been able to raise funds associated with our business. I find myself being able to put more time to work on the business. I still get up early in the morning here at 6:30, and I get about 3 hours in before everyone starts to come in the door to work on the business. But I find myself being able to do that more often during the day. So my role has changed, and also it's about culture too. I find that as a CEO, I'm actually setting the tone for that culture, and being a business owner at first and co-founder, you grow into that role of knowing that people look up to you, people mirror you, some of them want to be like you. So you are that role model and you are that leader. So you better start acting like it. So I've started to take on that responsibility and really embrace it.
Well, that is great. Really appreciate you sharing that. Let me ask you another question along that line, and that is, your role as a founder is very much a visionary, right?
Mhm.
And that should continue throughout the organization and as you continue to grow. Have you found it tough balancing between the visionary role and the operator role that, you had to do everything at the very beginning?
Yeah, literally, I'd come up with the idea. I'm like, okay, who's going to do it? Oh, I have to do it. I'll go execute. And so, with the talent being hired, I find myself getting more and more excited. There was a time I've been doing this one-click code for about 4 years now. And I think my interest in terms of interest associated with the vision is I've been such an implementer and such a manager around that I didn't lose sight of it, but I just wasn't able to obtain all of my I guess the time I wanted to focus on that vision. And so as the CEO, as I hire more talent, I'm able to get closer and closer, excuse me, to being able to, be part of that vision, and really live it, right? And then be able to help execute, not just execute, but help actually form it.
Right, right. Well, I think that's, a tough balancing act that occurs. And I think you found part of that remedy, which is as you hire in talent and being able to kind of offload some of that operational activity they have going on and continue to be that visionary so they can drive the business because you're looking over the horizon always, right?
Yeah.
What happens there. Well, let me ask you, as you look at OneClick, what's in the future for you? What would you like to share with the folks listening today?
Well, I think, we are on iOS, Android, and the web. We're currently a paid. We don't really have much free. We don't have much free, but we're looking at
Uh-huh.
actually developing free tools for our contractors and adjusters. And it's just in addition to commonly asked questions. So as an estimator, whether I'm a contractor or an adjuster, I'm wanting to know is like, how do I estimate how much material is going to be used because of the building code requirement? Ice and water shield is a big one for roofing. And so the question is, how do I calculate that? There's all this, the pitch of the roof, there's the depth, the thickness of the wall. There's all these calculations. No one really does it well. And so we're going to give one of those free tools as part of it to help them calculate which actually should be done for the amount of material. And then we also are doing ventilation. Ventilation is just a big thing because of the building codes becoming more stringent and restrictive. They're looking at ventilation across the country in terms of making sure you have enough ventilation coming in and out to cool that roof and to be able to cool the attic. And so we're looking at doing a calculation for that because you have existing ventilation. You're like, well, how much more do I need? And where do I need it? So we're looking at free tools to just help contractors and adjusters to be able to calculate those types of costs. And then one of the big things that we're in the process of launching right now is a nationwide ability to be able to calculate a permit fee. So if you think about, as estimators for both, again, contractors and adjusters, we're supposed to estimate for all known costs. It's one of those things that if we don't know it, we're not going to include it. But that creates a lot of back and forth of additional costs, which is otherwise known as supplementing. And so we're trying to reduce that and reduce cycle times. And by getting permit costs up front, we think that we can help decrease those cycle times to the point where permit costs will become just like sales tax is part of an estimate right now. You include sales tax, you're going to include a permit cost.
That's terrific. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that with us and giving us a little peek under the tent, as they say, with regard to what you have coming on. Now let's go to a fun part. And this is 30 seconds of rapid response. You can throw some questions out at you. I'd love to get your response.
Yeah.
So if fewer restrictions related to COVID, what is going to be your go-to restaurant?
Hillstone.
All right. Preferred vacation setting: mountains, ocean, desert, foreign city, any adventure trail?
Foreign city.
All right. Music app: Pandora, Spotify, or other?
Pandora.
All right. Now, if you could choose a business advisor, and I'm going to give you a quick list, tell me which one you think you might work with. So Warren Buffett, Mary Barra, Jamie Dimon, P.T. Barnum, Jeff Bezos, Walt Disney.
I would do Jeff Bezos.
All right. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
All right. Sunset, sunrise?
Sunrise.
Call or text?
Call.
Pen, pencil, or keyboard?
Ooh. Keyboard.
All right. Drums or guitar?
Drums.
All right. And stripes or solids?
Oh, wow. Solids.
All right. And what's been the best advice you've received in starting your business that you'd like to share?
I don't know if I can necessarily coin it correctly, but it has to do with quit asking for advice from people that haven't taken the journey.
Oh, that's a very good one. That's a very good one. Well, listen, thank you so much. That's a wrap. We're all done for today. Thank you so much for your time and providing your insights into the business, and we wish you continued success.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Got it. Thank you. All right, that's it.
Piece of cake.
Great job. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah,
that's
great.
exciting.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about the business that I didn't know. I can't imagine having to deal with businesses at a county level like that. It just has to drive you crazy.
City level, county level. I mean, Zillow doesn't even go to city. Zillow stops at county.
Right. That's right. That's right. You have to go to his city codes. And to your point, they're always changing. I mean, that's just crazy. The other thing I think about, and this is just kind of me thinking in the back of my head, is all the richness of the data that you're collecting and how can you take and repurpose that data? And then I think of, all right, is there another revenue stream that you could generate from it, right?
Well, we have tons of that. It's just a matter of like, how many different ways can you go? Like we can go a lot of different ways, but we have to focus. I mean, that's one of the things I did learn is like, you need to focus.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's terrific. Well, listen, I promised you it would only take 30 minutes. We're at about 20, so I'll give you 10 minutes of your day back.
That's awesome.
But thank you so much. Now, what we'll do is we'll take and, prepare this to be posted probably sometime next week. We'll get it up and we'll put it out there. So again, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Next week, you said?
Yes, next week.
Cool.
And thank you as well for your continued support of InsurTech Denver. We really appreciate it, and all you're doing in the industry and your willingness to participate with us.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you getting me on here, Mark. I really do.
Absolutely. Love to do it. All right, listen, thank you so much. Have a good day, and we'll talk soon.
All right, we'll see you.
Okay,
bye.